Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the coolest and, honestly, most surprising things you can do with integrals, figuring out the surface area of revolution. It's a wild concept that lets us take a simple 2D line, spin it around, and create a 3D object, leading to some seriously mind-bending results.
So let's just jump right in with a question that sounds completely impossible, right? Imagine an object that you can fill with a finite amount of paint. No problem. But if you tried to paint the outside of it, you would literally never finish. How on earth can that be possible? Well, stick around, because by the end of this, you'll see the elegant calculus behind it all.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll get the main idea down, this concept of a spinning ribbon. Then we'll unpack the actual formula you need. After that, we'll prove it works by building a sphere from scratch. And finally, we'll circle back to that crazy infinite paint paradox. Okay, so how in the world do you calculate the area of something curved, like a vase or a trumpet bell? Well, like with so many things in calculus, the secret is to stop thinking big and start thinking really, really small, like infinitely small.
I want you to picture any curve on a graph. Now, let's zoom in way in on just one tiny little piece of that curve. The length of that teeny tiny segment, that little walking distance along the curve, that's our arc length element, and we call it ds.
And here's where the revolution part kicks in. We're going to take that little piece, that idless, and we're going to spin it a full 360 degrees around an axis. As it whips around, it traces out a shape in 3D space.
The shape it makes is this super thin band, almost like a tiny ribbon. And the area of that one ribbon? It's actually really simple. It's just its circumference, which is 2 pi times the radius, multiplied by its width, which is our little arc length ds. Seriously, just think about taking the label off a soup can and laying it flat. That's the idea. So to get the total surface area, we just have to add up all of these infinitely thin ribbons. And what do we use to add up an infinite number of tiny things? You got it, an integral.
Okay, so that's the big picture. Now let's see how that spinning ribbon idea turns into a proper formula that we can actually use to solve some problems.
Now this is probably the most critical part you need to get right, the radius. It's not always the same. It completely depends on which axis you're spinning around. If you rotate around the x-axis, your radius at any point is just the height of the function, f of x. But if you rotate around the y-axis, the radius becomes the horizontal distance from the axis, which is just x. Getting this right is half the battle.
So the whole formula is really just a direct translation of our ribbon idea. You've got the circumference part, that's the 2 pi times the radius, and you've got the arc length element, which is that big square root thing. It looks a little intimidating, but it's just those two key pieces, circumference and arc length, all summed up by the integral.
And you know what the best part is? This whole thing boils down to a clear 5-step recipe you can use every single time. Find the derivative, build that arc length piece, figure out your radius, plug everything into the integral, and then solve it. It's a fantastic, reliable process.
All right, enough theory. Let's actually put this formula to the test. And what better way to do that than to try and derive a formula we all learned in geometry class, the surface area of a sphere.
So, how do we make a sphere? Well, we can take the function for a semicircle, in this case 1 with a radius of 2, and we just rotate it around the x-axis going from -2 all the way to +2.
We're just going to follow our 5 steps. First, we find the derivative, chain rule. Then, we square it and add 1. Now, this part involves a little bit of algebraic grunt work, finding a common denominator, but you'll see it cleans up really nicely. And finally, we plug all our pieces into the integral. The 2 pi, the radius, which is our original function, and that arc length part we just figured out.
And right here, this is one of those moments that just makes you love calculus. All that messy algebra we just did, the square root in the radius and the square root in the arc length, they just poof. They perfectly cancel each other out. It's just so elegant.
So after that amazing cancellation, look what we're left with. It's an unbelievably simple integral. We're just integrating the number 1 from -2 to 2 and then multiplying the whole thing by 4 pi. When we evaluate that, we get a final answer of 16 pi. Now, does that number ring a bell? Think back to geometry. The formula is s equals 4 pi r squared. For our sphere with a radius of 2, that's 4 times pi times 4, which is 16 pi. It matches perfectly. Our calculus method actually works.
Okay, so now we know we can trust the formula. It gave us the right answer for a sphere,
So let's take this trusty tool and point it at something much, much stranger, a shape that kind of breaks our everyday intuition about how the world works.
Let's go back to Gabriel's horn. You get this shape by rotating the simple function y equals 1 over x, starting from x equals 1 and going out forever, to infinity. Now we know from looking at improper integrals that this horn has a finite volume. You can actually fill it up with exactly pi cubic units of paint. So you'd think its surface area must also be finite, right? I mean, that just seems like common sense.
Now, the integral for the surface area of this thing looks pretty nasty, but here's the secret. We don't actually have to solve it. We can use a really clever trick called the comparison test. Just look at that square root part. Since we're adding a positive number inside the square root, that whole term has to be bigger than 1. That means our entire surface area integral must be bigger than a simpler one, the integral of 2 pi times 1 over x. And we already know that that integral, the integral of 1 over x, goes to infinity. It diverges.
So think about it. If our surface area is greater than something that is already infinite, then it has to be infinite too.
And that brings us right back to where we started. This is the famous painter's paradox. Gabriel's horn has a finite volume. You can fill it, but it has an infinite surface area. You have enough paint to fill the inside, but if you tried to paint the outside, you would literally run out of paint and never ever be able to finish the job. And that really is why we study this stuff. Calculus isn't just a collection of formulas. It's a language, a tool for describing the universe in ways that let us explore the very edges of logic, of space, and even infinity itself. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other paradoxes are just waiting out there to be discovered, just by spinning a simple line through space?